Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be learning about percents, fractions, and decimals. It's two lessons in one today. It's 8.1 and 8.2. So if you can go to your table of contents, and I'm not sure exactly what page number you're on, but find in your table of contents, do the next page, and then come on back. All right, so we're going to start out with a definition. And the definition is of a percent. So percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. And that's what per cent means. Cent stands for 100. So it's per 100. And an interesting, well, go ahead and write that definition down and then turn it back on. Okay, so when you're looking at a fraction, remember I've told you that the line in a fraction means divided by. It also means per. So, let me erase that now. Okay, so it also means per. So this is 23 per 100, or 23 per cent. 23%. Okay, so let's look at, we want to look at the a grid to model just a little bit for you. Okay, so the first grid we're going to model, it's 17 out of 20. So this is a 100 square grid, so we want to turn this into a regular percent. So we're going to change this fraction. And what times 25 will give us 100? It's times 4. So we have to do the same thing with 17. And 17 times 4 equals 68. So it's going to be 68 out of 100, or 68 per cent. 68%. So we're going to want to color 68 of these. So it's going to be difficult for me to see this, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe it's right there. So we're going to color in 68. So I will leave 2 open down here at the bottom. Okay. I will do my best to color all these in with my stylus. Okay, but you get the idea. Okay, so 68 of these squares will be colored in. Okay, for the next one, we have 33 out of 50, but we need to change that into a percent, so we're going to do it out of 100, so we multiplied 50 by 2, so we're going to multiply 33 by 2, which will give us 66%. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to color. Let me go from the top. Let's see if I can do better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 66. So we're going to go, oh gosh, this is hard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then all this is colored in up here. And then we're going to color in, I'm going to really try to color in 60. Oh, I got a little bit more than I should have. 66%. Okay, but you guys get the idea. If you had a pen, if you had a piece of paper and a pencil, you'd be able to do this. 66 of these cubes out of 100 is colored in. Okay, our next one is 14 out of 20. Well, we need to change that to a percent. So I have to multiply, what do I multiply 20 by to give me 100? Times 5. So 14 times 5 is going to give me 60. What does it give me? Whoops, let's just do it. 4 times 2 is, sorry, it gives me 70. Okay. So now I will need to color in 70, oops, let me go back to my blue, 70 of my squares. So that'll be a little easier because I can go straight across. Okay, so that is, and that is also 70%, 70 per 100. Okay, so that's just the modeling. We're going to do a few more different things, but I just wanted to show you on a grid what that would look like, how many squares you're going to have, you would color in. All right, so let's move on to the next one. All right, so now there's some benchmark percents and fractions that I want you to memorize because you're going to be seeing these a lot. And when you see them, you can use them to compare other percents and fractions. For instance, 1/10, when you turn that into a decimal, it becomes, into a percent, it becomes 10%, 10 out of 100. Because if I multiply the 10 by 10 to get to 100 and multiply 1 by 10 to get to 100, it's 10%. Same thing here. This will be 20%. If I multiply both of these by 10, I get 30 out of 100, 30%. And then, of course, we have 40%. Okay, so just memorize those. Now we have the fifths. So 1/5, if I work that out, it becomes 20%. But like I said, I'm just giving these to you and I want you to memorize these. 20, 40, 60, 80. Okay. Now the next group I have is easy because we're used to dealing with money, and it's quarters. And a quarter is a quarter out of 100, out of $1. So 1/4 is 25%. And this, my next one could be written as 1/2, or it was really written as 2/4, but then I reduced it to 1/2. So 2/4 is 50%. 3/4 equals 75%. Okay, so these are all ones that I want you to memorize. 1/3 of something is going to be 33 and 1/3%, because it's going to repeat on and on. It's like 0.333333333333 forever. Okay, and same with 2/3. It's going to be 66 and 2/3%, always. Okay, now anytime you have a 1, it's going to be 100%. Okay, if you have the same number on the top and the bottom, you have 100% of the items, right? If you have 8 pieces in a pie and you and your family eat all 8 pieces, you have eaten 100% of the pie. Okay, all right, so we're going to move on now. Okay, so when you are asked to write a percent as a fraction, the first step you need to do is to put it over 100. So this is 35%. So remember, 35 per 100, right? Well, is that in simplest form? No. So you have to divide the top and the bottom. They can both be divided by 5. So we're going to divide the top by 5 and we're going to get 7. Divide the bottom by 5 and we get 20. So 35% is rewritten as 7/20. 80% is going to be 80 over 100. And again, we have to reduce it to simplest form. So we're going to reduce that down. 20 actually is the greatest common factor there. So we're going to reduce it to 4/5. Okay, and 36% per 100. And we're going to reduce that down and divide both of these. 4 goes into both of these, and it's going to become 9/25. Okay, and then this would be your answer. So just remember, when you're turning a percent into a fraction, just put it over 100 to start with. Then you can worry about reducing it down. All right, we're going to move on to our next square. Okay, now we're going to take a percent and write it as a decimal. This is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, so when you turn a percent into a decimal, all you have to do, you are dividing by 100. So you're just going to be moving the decimal 2 to the left. So you go 1, 2. So 35% written as a decimal is going to be 0.35. Okay, and 48%, same thing too. We're going to go twice over, and 48% is going to be written as 0.48. And 75, again, we will go 2 to the left. Oops. And it becomes 0.75 when you're rewriting as a decimal. Okay? So when you're going from percent to decimal, it goes 2 to the left. When you go from from decimal to percent, obviously it goes back over the other way. So that would be 1, 2, 35%. Okay, so depending on which way you're going to move the decimal. All right, next slide. Okay, now we're writing the fraction as a decimal. Now there's two different ways, and I'm going to show you both. So the first way is 96 out of 200. Okay, so percent means out of 100. So I need to turn the bottom number into 100. So in order to do that, I would have to divide 200 by 2. So that would give me 100, right? Whatever you do to the bottom, you need to do to the top. So we're going to divide by 2, and 96 divided by 2 is 48. And so that's a 48 out of 100. And if you read that mathematically, 48 hundredths. Let's put that in a decimal. 48 hundredths. It's in the hundredths place. And so that's how we know we did it correctly. 48 hundredths. Okay, the next one. We want to make the bottom number 100. So 25 times 4 is 100. So we're going to do both times 4. That gives me 36 up here. Gives me 100. And so when I read it mathematically, it says 36 hundredths. So I'm going to 36 hundredths. And remember, it's in the hundredths place. Okay. Now the other way, when you can't immediately see what you can multiply or divide by to get you to 100, there's another way to do it. Remember, I've told you that this line right here means divided by. So you would do 7 divided by 8. Okay, and obviously 8 does not go into 7, so we're going to have to add some zeros here. Okay, so 7 goes into 70, actually goes in 8 times, 8 goes into 70 8 times. That becomes 64. We subtract. 8 goes into 60 7 times, 56. And then we subtract again, we get 40. 8 goes into 40 5 times, and we are done. Okay, so our new decimal is 0.875. I forgot my 0 at the beginning. 0.875. So you can do it either way. If you can immediately see what you can multiply or divide the number by to get to 100, do it that way. If you can't, then you can always do the division. All right, we have one more slide to go. All right, now we're going to write a fraction as a percent. And here we're going to just do the division like I showed you in the previous slide. So 5 divided by 8. And the way I always remember where to put my numbers is I do 5 divided by 8. Okay. Oops, that should be the decimal. Let me add some zeros here because we're going to need a few. Okay, so 8 goes into 50 6 times. 48. I hope I have enough room here. And then we have 20 left over. And it goes into 22 times. 16, and that's 40. Oh, good, we're going to have enough room. And it goes into 45 times. Okay, so, but this is as a decimal. So then I have to turn my decimal into percent. So if I'm going from decimal to percent, I'm going to slide over 2 to the right. And so that will give me 62.5%. Okay, and over here we're going to do 1 divided by 8. I went over here so I could have a little bit more space here. Okay, so 8 goes into 10 one time. My decimal up there. Subtract, we get 20. And it goes in 2 times, That becomes 16. Get a 4. And we're going to have exactly, well, this is a 2. Sorry, guys. Here, let me erase that and start over here. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to change that into a percent. So I have to go 1, 2 to the right. And so my answer will be 12.5%. Okay, when it's written as a percent. All right, so tomorrow we're going to do a lot more examples in class. I will see you then.